Government Senator Linda Reynolds calls for debate on mixed-gender teams in Australia's elite sports. For fuck's sake, you'd think a senator would be a bit sharper than this, wouldn't you? So basically, we've got this Senator Linda Reynolds, who was the Australian Army Reserve's first female brigadier, which is fantastic, you go girl, women kicking ass, etc. But that doesn't mean chicks can compete with blokes in sports like Aussie rules football or rugby league. That's fucking ridiculous. Good debate, catch ya. Alright, I suppose I should go into a bit more detail, but that's the fucking gist of it. A rising star inside the Turnbull government has called for a national debate on introducing mixed-gender competitions to professional sport, asking why women are segregated from competing against men in codes like the AFL, NRL and Rugby Union. Linda Reynolds, who was Australia's first female brigadier in the Army Reserves before joining Parliament, told Fairfax Media that sports should follow in the footsteps of the Australian Army, which has a target of lifting the proportion of women in its ranks to 25% within 5 years. Well, I'll tell you why women are segregated from men in codes like the AFL, NRL and Rugby Union, and why sports shouldn't follow in the footsteps of the Australian Army. It's because men are stronger and faster than women, and the average sports spectator isn't willing to delude themselves for the sake of gender equality. At the end of the day, sport must meet the expectations of the spectators. Those overseeing the Australian Armed Forces are willing to delude themselves for the sake of gender equality. That's why the Australian Armed Forces have different expectations for men and women. But sadly, at the end of the day, it's not the expectations of the top brass that counts. It's the ability to overcome the armed forces of potential enemies, and the armed forces of potential enemies definitely aren't willing to delude themselves for the sake of gender equality. Like in the military, sport requires many different qualities in an individual player, but also in the team, Senator Reynolds told Fairfax Media. We no longer segregate women solely on their gender. Women now have the opportunity to compete on merit in the military. Maybe it's time to rethink the segregation of women in sports simply based on their gender and not on the talent. The Western Australian Liberal Senator, who is a prominent advocate of the role of women in society, has been locked in a recent war of words with Conservative MPs Corey Bernardi and former SAS soldier Andrew Hastie over their opposition to women serving on the front line of battle. Asked if women might fear being put at a disadvantage if asked to compete against men to qualify for teams, Senator Reynolds said, "How do you know if you don't give it a go?" No, it's hard to argue with that logic. That's why in 2016 the Matildas women's soccer team played a friendly match with the Newcastle Jets men's soccer team. Well, boys' soccer team. Under 15 boys. The boys ended up thrashing the women's team 7-0. Now, if you weren't aware, the Matildas are our national women's soccer team. They're the ones we send to the fucking Olympics. At the time, they were ranked 5th best women's team in the world, and they were beaten 7-0 by the Newcastle Jets under 15s. Not the state or national boys team, the Newcastle Jets under 15s. People go and watch women in soccer and AFL, she said. All these people who think it's about physical strength. It is an important characteristic, but it is not the only characteristic, she said. Women excel in sport and in the military because they also have the other qualities required: leadership, resilience and strength. There are outstanding female athletes. Why shouldn't they have an opportunity? Of course we want things to be judged on merit, but what is merit? Well, if we're talking about rugby, for instance, merit is being a fucking massive meat-axe of a cunt who can run really fast with a ball and bulldoze your way through other massive meat-axe cunts. It's not all about physical strength. Women have other qualities like leadership and resilience and strength. Guys, stop being so rough for a minute so I can do some leadership. Guys, if you don't stop being so nasty, you're not going to get any of my resilience. You're going to miss out on my other important characteristics. Guys, can't we all just get along for a little while? We need to figure out what merit is. Guys, you're not listening to my leadership. Guys. Yeah, so that's how fucking retarded that is. Now, before I go, fellow Aussie YouTuber Suit Yourself has recently had his channel terminated after receiving what appear to be some pretty overzealous community guideline strikes. He's got a new channel which I've linked in the description. I'm sure he'd appreciate a visit. Cheerio.
Recession, session.